Hi, welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is Zak Tatham, a Toronto filmmaker whose work includes the charmingly lo-fi Space Breakers, which screened at Toronto's What the Film Festival in 2016. The festival's back at the Royal Cinema and the nearby Monarch Tavern this weekend, Saturday, February 24th and Sunday, February 25th, so this seemed as good a time as any to get Zak on the podcast. Zak picked Sorcerer, William Friedkin's remake of Henri-Georges Clouzot's The Wages of Fear, a dream project for Friedkin, who was on a high after the back-to-back smashes of The French Connection and The Exorcist. With a screenplay by Waylon Green that strips the story down to its basics, a cast of stone-faced anti-heroes led by Roy Scheider, Francisco Rabal, Bruno Kremer, and Amidou, and some amazing practical stunt work, Sorcerer is a compelling, grim, unmistakably adult cinematic experience. And unfortunately, compelling, grim, unmistakably adult cinematic experiences were not what audiences were looking for in the summer of Star Wars. Dismissed by critics and rejected at the box office, Sorcerer spent decades in the weeds, ultimately getting the respect it deserved with a digital restoration in 2014. We're here to give it a little more. This is Someone Else's Movie.
I got it on Blu-ray.
Okay.
So, I had just been hearing about it, and it, just looked so intriguing. I don't know what the name really meant.
Yeah, I'm still not sure.
A lot of confusing things about it, but, just looked kind of, raw. And I love, just, the trailer just looked amazing. And then, yeah, I just love the simplicity of it. Love, kind of this overarching, it's just kind of this feeling of doom, kind of, for the entire movie.
Yeah.
For, flawed characters in, a really desperate situation, trying to dig themselves out. And then I had actually seen the Wages of Fear.
I was going to ask if you had a...
Yeah, I saw that years ago, and then I put it together, and I loved Friedkin stuff a lot. So just was wow, need to see this movie.
Yeah.
And I just loved it completely. But it's pretty depressing.
I guess so. I mean, I saw it. I'm trying to remember the first time I saw it was probably on film. As opposed to, because it was one of the...
Back in the day?
Well, I missed it in 1977, because I was 8 or 9, and Star Wars was the thing that took all the attention.
Yeah.
Which
kind of killed it,
else. Yeah.
From what I hear.
Yeah, it was positioned as the next film from the director of The Exorcist, this huge follow-up that he'd been working on for 4 years, and this passion project. Yeah. And it is that story of the get-out-of-jail-free card. When you make a movie as big as The Exorcist, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to remake The Wages of Fear.
Yep.
And they did that.
And add a ton more to it.
Yeah, and strip it down too, right? It's this really interesting reinterpretation of the material, because he's expanding certain things, and yet just yanking out, there's almost no dialogue in the second half of the film.
Yeah, it's pure suspense.
Yeah, and it's all practical, everything you see is real, which is just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So I missed it, and it became this legendary thing to me.
Right.
And in the late 80s... Universal released the Laserdisc. That's how old I am. And it was open matte, which was a huge deal at the time because it was the wrong aspect ratio. Friedkin, for a while, right. I'm such an aspect ratio nerd that I have to talk about this. William Friedkin spent most of the 1980s and 1990s betraying his own movies by not releasing them in widescreen.
Really?
Yeah, he resisted letterboxing longer than almost anybody else.
Okay.
But Sorcerer, almost as an answer to the Laserdisc release, suddenly showed up in rep theaters again. So I went and saw it at the Bloor.
Okay.
In projected on film in its proper aspect ratio. Uh-huh. And with a friend of mine, and his first response as soon as the credits came up was, "All that way." It's just that was, wow.
Yeah.
And I don't mind nihilism. I'm kind of good with it.
It kind of makes it fun. Like I was just thinking to myself, how he stripped it down like how you kind of, it leaves all this mystery about each character.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of flawed. It kind of almost all works together in being like fun nihilism, I guess.
Yeah, well, because we know more about them than any of them knows about the other, because of the prologue, which is almost an hour of the film.
Yeah.
And we, like, our perspective is illuminating, I guess is the word I would use. Like, we know more because we know they don't really deserve to live. Like, they're all there for a reason, and if this is their hell, then they can just, I'm fine with it. They can stay there.
Yeah.
And so it becomes this really compelling struggle to stay alive for another 10 minutes or another mile of road, or, they're probably dead from the beginning if you take the moral interpretation of it. They don't deserve to survive this. But they're also going to stop the fire and save people.
Yeah.
So their odyssey has meaning.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's a rough, dirty kind of morality.
Yeah, like it's lives for lives. It's the most basic kind of... It's not a redemption arc because I don't think they're really redeemed. They're just buying themselves a reason to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like definitely one of the things I like about it. It's like a lot of flawed people and flawed environments and flawed choices, and like, yeah, just like it feels a lot like pretty real, I guess, maybe.
Well, the sweat feels real. Like there's oil on everything. It's grimy and ugly and desperate. And if you're going to tell that story, like, there's nobody better than Roy Scheider.
Yeah.
Who I just, I saw Jaws when I was very young, and he's always been my hero.
Right.
Like, he's my male archetype.
I remember hearing, like, looking at some fun facts, I guess, before this, and it was saying that it was Steve McQueen was Friedkin's first choice.
I could kind of see that. But he was sick, right? Like, he was already ill.
I guess.
Or maybe he died in 81, so maybe not. Or maybe 80.
I just heard it was like, it sounded like a bunch of deals were going on, and like Steve McQueen wanted his girlfriend to be in it at the time, or something like that.
Ali McGraw? Was it Ali McGraw even then? It was, right? Because that was...
It might be.
They would have been putting this together when The Getaway was coming out, and... Yeah, where would she even... I guess you could kill her in the first 5 minutes, but you can't really give her a role.
Yeah, because I guess Roy Schneider's part doesn't really have a female connection or anything.
No,
the banker has a wife, but...
Yeah, but they're not there with them. They're not...
Yeah, it was just a very small role.
Yeah.
It's mainly men getting dirty and... falling apart.
Yeah, brotherhood of desperation.
Yeah.
It's it's always been a film that I've not always. First, for 20 years it was a myth. For 10 years it was a myth, and then I saw it and really liked it, and I've kind of gone back to it every now and then, and I finally saw it theatrically again the first time in, I guess, 25 years when the restoration played TIFF.
Right.
And it was digital, but it was still pretty good.
Yeah, they did a good job. Looks like they the colors are pretty amazing. There's a lot of grain. Yeah. But it's not bad. It just helps the movie.
Yeah, it's messy.
Yeah.
It's atmospheric is under.
Seems like some rain got into the film.
Yeah.
Some dirt got into the film.
Yeah. It really, given how minimalist it is, it's an incredibly immersive film. It doesn't skimp on detail. Everything is there.
Yeah,
but
it's excruciating at parts.
Yeah, but it doesn't dwell on anything either. It's one of the few films where you completely understand like urgency and the passage of time without any stylized cutting or any kind of... I guess the music is probably the biggest added element because it is so propulsive.
Yeah, but minimalist. Very it's just the same. It feels like it's like the same song. Kind of almost
like the loop
comes in whenever it's needed.
This awful heartbeat.
Yeah,
that won't stop, and there's nothing. It's not a survival picture, but it plays like one, right? Because they only have what they have. Everything is hostile. Yeah, everything is always trying. I mean, the trucks could explode at any moment. There's always a sense of tension, and you can't solve this problem if something goes wrong.
Yeah, it's a snowball downhill kind of,
but somehow also on fire.
Yeah,
and that's not helping either. But you get these incredible images and these moments of just pure. I'm doing all the talking. I just realized I love the film. I think it's great. And so yeah, were you aware of it all along? Did you know it was as important?
Yeah, like I really only just found out of it. I think about like 4 years ago, just kind of with the Blu-ray coming out.
So really, you had
it was all over my head, and like I had seen French Connection and The Exorcist, but I hadn't seen much of Friedkin stuff. Mm-hmm. And now I saw Killer Joe and The Guardian. I think those are the only 4 that I've seen of his. And also
Live and Die. You must.
I've seen Live and Die, and also the one with Al Pacino.
Oh, Cruising.
Cruising, yeah.
The problematic one.
Yeah.
The Guardian's bad.
That's a good. Yeah, The Guardian's bad.
I saw that in
has some really fun scenes in it, but it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
It's like seems like. Yeah, I guess like after the flop of Sorcerer, his kind of rhythm and budget got out of whack.
Yeah, well, his next movie was Deal of the Century, which I bet you've never even heard of, right? Chevy Chase, Gregory Hines, and Sigourney Weaver in an arms dealer comedy.
Right.
It is not good.
Really?
Yeah, it's just a mess. But it
sounds like fun. It doesn't sound like his thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's just a bad fit for everybody.
Yeah,
but it's just one of those movies that, again, saw it theatrically in 1981 or 82, and just nobody knew what to do with it. It's just a film where you stare at it. And then he was in the weeds for a while. Well, To Live and Die in L.A. kind of pulled it back together for a bit in 85.
Yeah.
But then back into the weeds.
Yeah.
And everyone thought he made Manhunter, even though he didn't.
Right.
It was a weird thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a fascinating guy. I mean, I'm always interested in what he does.
So. Yeah. Oh, and he's as a person. I mean, he's a character. Like, he is this kind of old school movie guy.
Yeah.
He just needs a big cigar and sunglasses and oversized sunglasses. I interviewed him for Killer Joe.
Oh yeah?
I guess. Yeah. When he came through TIFF, and he told stories. He didn't answer questions. He just, whatever we talked about, he would launch into an anecdote. And they were all great. Some of them were about the movie, some of them were about production process. Others were just about this actor he liked from something else. He told me that Michael Shannon originally played the role on stage that went to Emile Hirsch in the film, and I couldn't reconcile that. Even as a younger actor who was this imposing presence, like, he shows up in Groundhog Day, and it's jarring because, Jesus, that's Michael Shannon. He's hulking over Bill Murray.
Yeah.
And so he was saying, yeah, Shannon, I worked with him on Bug, and he could have done it, but we figured he was a little too old. And then he just started talking about all of Michael Shannon's stage roles. I was like, okay, you know all of this stuff. You're not just filling time. He was really interested in it. And we did talk about Sorcerer a little bit, just because I love it, and it hadn't been released. He didn't know anything about
vaulted or something for
some
reason.
He didn't know about the release plan, but he was sure it was coming. He just said it was a rights thing.
Yeah.
And it was for years.
Because
and this goes back to the history of the film. It was so expensive that it was split between 2 studios, Paramount and Universal, if I remember correctly.
But it was not even really expensive by today's terms, but yeah, definitely went over budget.
Yeah. And it's like Apocalypse Now in that the studios poured money into it because this guy is an American auteur, he's huge, it'll come back to us. And then, it just opened against Star Wars and was murdered.
Yeah. I remember, looking up information about the title, just trying to figure it out for the longest time.
Yeah.
Why is it called Sorcerer? I kind of ended up liking it in this mystique about it, but then it kind of makes sense that he explains it in that it's like an evil, cruel sorcerer of fate, right? And that's kind of how he felt with his movies. Like, he had success and he wasn't sure if it was fate or if it was if it was going to be good or bad. He just kind of felt adrift, I guess. And then that's how he interprets these characters. They're being kind of beaten up by fate. They don't really have any control.
I guess if you're going up against something as evocative as The Wages of Fear,
Yeah,
you're gonna
it's a
lose.
bit. Yeah, it's
what you do.
bit more clear, poetic title. And then it's kind of funny also because like there's only the truck named Sorcerer.
Yeah.
Only is like what in 2 shots.
Yeah, and
in
it
the
doesn't.
movie.
It doesn't really register. Like it's not like some huge metaphor.
Yeah.
Or some grand statement.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it feels like there's gonna be some magic in it at some point.
Yeah.
At least when I feel like if you just saw the poster or like something like that.
Oh yeah, and it was sold as a horror film. I mean, the original marketing is distressing.
Yeah, and coming after The Exorcist, I guess.
Yeah, and that was from
Supernatural.
William Friedkin, director of The Exorcist. You hear Sorcerer, and you hear.
Yeah, they messed it all up in the advertising.
Yeah, it's really amazing how now, 41 years later, and the title is now gone back around to being evocative and mysterious, and it doesn't really matter what it's called.
Yeah.
To the point where you can say, oh, it's like Sorcerer, and anyone who's seen the film will instantly know what kind of mood you're talking about and what kind of feeling you're describing.
Yeah.
But yeah, in 1977, no one knew what was coming, and it wasn't anything anybody wanted. I think it was like too grim even for 1977, just as everything was getting brighter.
Wars, I guess.
Yeah, well, everything's getting brighter and more colorful.
Yeah.
Movies are starting to wake up. 76 brought them Rocky, and Taxi Driver and Network and All the President's Men, but those are all, even the darkest ones feel triumphant somehow. They sell a big, Network is kind of a happy ending, even as the bad guys win, and.
This
Carter's
is almost kind of like you're cheering on the bad guys.
Well, yeah, there's nobody to root for.
Yeah.
Except the nitroglycerin, and that's just mean. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. You just want to see this chaos ensue.
Yeah. All the pieces, it takes so long for everything to set up. And then once they're in place, it's just like this little bottleneck of plot where it all gets thrown away anyway. Because once they're behind the wheel, there's nothing else.
Yeah.
Which is really compelling. I mean, I was trying to figure out if there's a way to do it now, if there's a modern analog, and I don't know that there is, because you would have to start with them in the car and flash back, and that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You can't interrupt the journey.
Yeah, I really dislike movies that kind of disrupt a flow or
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer if something's just straightforward, like chronological narrative, and I feel like it adds to the suspense so much more.
Oh, yeah. I just saw something recently that maintained for a good 40, 50 minutes of a straight up narrative and then popped up a flashback, and I just thought, oh no, don't do that.
Yeah.
You were doing so well with the environment.
You yanked me away from what I was loving.
Yeah, and even the use of flashbacks in something like Annihilation that just came out.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the same thing, right?
I love so much about that movie. But yeah, the flashbacks, I kept being like, stop it. Don't do that.
Well, it's Alex
Had
Garland.
enough. I want to be in this environment.
Yeah, I don't think he trusts us to follow the development of certain things, like the tattoo and stuff, without the flashback, flash forward thing. And it's just like, don't tell me everybody else is dead. Yeah. They're going to be dead then. That's no fun.
Yeah, let me see it. Let me absorb it myself. If I don't absorb it, I'll happily watch it again.
Yeah.
I'll happily talk about it.
Yeah. There's a film at the Canadian Film Festival this weekend called Ordinary Days, which is a really interesting take on one event from multiple perspectives that doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like it cheats. It does go back in time.
Okay.
It's 3 segments about 25 minutes each. Maybe, a couple of them are a little longer, but they're framed around the days of this disappeared girl. She goes missing. We see her at the very beginning, and she goes missing. We follow her parents as they wait to find word of her. And then we roll back to start again and find the cop who's looking for her. And then in the final segment, we find out what's happened. And finally, the resolution actually plays. It's one of those things where you're not repeating and jumping back and forth. It's just a smooth line each time. It's just that you start again.
Right.
And that stuff...
Yeah, I don't mind that. It's justified because there's multiple main characters, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And with Sorcerer, there are multiple characters. Yeah. We all follow downwards to the jungle, and then you're in the jungle with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was also hearing that, part of the confusion for people disliking the movie was because you get, all these 4 kind of huge locations at the beginning, and for some reason, like there's subtitles, I guess, and stuff like that. For some reason, people thought it was like a foreign language film for a little bit.
Everybody
they had to put like a little notice on the board, like it's only a foreign language. It's only like subtitled for the first little bit because we go to different locations. Yeah.
People are so dumb. The idea that he isn't condescending to us, that they are speaking their own languages, it sets up later that they can't really communicate.
Yeah. There is one point, I guess, when the guerrillas, I guess, attack, like the truck. They like Roche Schneider is in the truck, and they get kind of like ambushed, I guess, by the guerrillas. And I think that was maybe supposed to be in a different language, is what I read or something. Mm-hmm. Like that was supposed to be, I guess they were speaking in Spanish, and the assassin character kind of understands what they're saying when they're saying we're gonna kill these two guys on the road. Right. But they're speaking in English, from what I remember. Unless, I don't think there's subtitles to that part. Yeah. But, I mean, it's all good.
Yeah, well, but that's it, right? I mean, if the whole point is this in this miasma where no one can understand each other fully, all you have are glances and gestures.
Yeah.
And then, even then, they're across a bridge in the rain where they can't even hear each other, and they have to communicate with, basically semaphore with their arms.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a stressful scene.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Every time I watch it, I'm not worried that they won't make it. I know the movie.
Yeah.
But I worry about a stunt guy or the crew.
Yeah, you're like, this looks so raw.
Yeah. How do you shake a rope bridge with a truck on it?
Yeah.
And not have someone die?
Yeah.
Like, it really does feel like, and it's the thing where now, I mean, what was it like watching it for you? Because you've grown up with CGI and you've had that all around you. I mean,
I was just like blown away. I kept like, I was like, it kind of feels like so real.
Yeah,
I guess.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it really.
At least the first time I watched it. The second time, I did notice a little rope,
a safety line.
A safety line, and then I read about it a bit more, and they said they like had the whole scene like totally controlled, and it was like $1 million scene. They had to shoot it multiple times because like they flooded the river was like flooded when they're shooting or something, and then it like was completely dry, and they had to like protect the set because the townsfolk nearby were superstitious and angry because they blamed them for like this drought or something. But they literally had to like get helicopters and stuff to sprinkle the set with water and like I guess to make it fake rain. And they had like big things to rock the trucks and the bridge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like completely authentic.
Oh yeah, in the moment, in the theater,
just stressed out. This truck's just gonna tumble right off.
Yeah, it plays so well. The motion, that's the moment when the title seems to make sense too, because it feels like the trucks are alive, and refusing to cross the bridge.
Right.
That whatever they're going to do, plus explosives, volatile leaking dynamite, but whatever they're going to do, they don't have the final say. The people don't have the final say. The machines do, and the jungle does.
Yeah.
And it's primordial and creepy in the best way.
Yeah, like these trucks could break down at any point, and like they kind of do, and the jungle could just like there's a tree in the way, they could just sink into the ground, slip off the road, flip over.
This is why I don't go camping. It's never been my deal.
It's a little insane.
And then it is, without getting into huge spoilers, it is ultimately a futile and useless gesture for some of them. It's
right.
It's the road to the end.
Yeah.
This purifying fire of the jungle. Every metaphor goes out the window.
Yeah. Yeah. He somehow makes it. There's like a success to it, a mild success, like an early happy success that it won't last.
Yeah,
I love movies that kind of promise you like a happy ending, and
like a full catharsis.
Yeah, but like almost like half like jokingly or like not truthfully,
right?
Like like we're giving you this because it's necessary for you to like feel like these characters succeeded in some way because of this like narrative device that kind of makes us feel better. It feels like we watched this movie for a reason.
Right.
But then there's like a little follow-up that like clarifies like this is how the world is.
Yeah. I kind of want, this sounds so weird every time but every time I see the movie I think about the guy sent to get him. Like the guy who shows up at the very end of the movie.
The guy, the
death
gangster,
squad, I guess. Yeah, the
like,
gangster hit squad.
Owns this corrupt money laundering church.
Yeah, the people coming for Scheider.
Yeah.
I always wonder what their day was like. You know, like, did they have the same kind of trip? Did they have a really shitty time on the bridge?
How long has, how much time has passed?
Yeah.
How much
did they
money
get there
have they
first? Have they
spent?
been waiting? Yeah. What's the expense account on this sort of thing?
Yeah. Like, I thought they were going to hire somebody, but I guess they hired somebody to...
And it has to be someone we recognize, right? Because from the beginning of the film, or else the audience might be
bookend
confused.
it, in a way.
Yeah. So, again, there's stagecraft in this. There's so much thought that's gone into it. And this really, it's not narratively ambitious, except that it is, because it's almost an experimental film in its second half.
Yeah.
But it is, the presentation of it is really smart, really considered, really thoughtful. I regret never asking him this, but I can only imagine what it's like to put so much of yourself into a movie that no one goes to see.
Right.
And it just, to watch it sink.
Yeah.
Opposite Star Wars, which, you know, nobody knew it was going to be what it was, but it was so clearly not a, in air quotes, serious film.
Yeah. It was a fun movie.
Yeah, I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
But Sorcerer...
Yeah, he put 4 years into it.
Yeah, it's
went
got
to like
stuff.
tons of locations. Changed the title. I heard the original title was called Ball Breaker.
Yeah, I don't think they were going to get away with that.
I mean, it would have maybe, at the time, it would have been maybe more straightforward with the advertising.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
but, like, for longevity...
you release a movie called Ball Breaker the same year as Smokey and the Bandit. Maybe you have a chance.
Yeah.
But it also...
It's a fun title. I don't know if there's any other movie called Ball Breaker.
Yeah.
Well, probably is.
Probably an 80s sex comedy.
Yeah.
But there's also no way to make people buy that title with this movie. It's so serious.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
just...
a kind of a screwball title.
Yeah. But
yeah, like... Yeah, it's kind of... I think, like, maybe it, like, relates to the title why he chose Sorcerer. I guess he, like, saw it as, like, preemptive cruel wizard of fate coming to, like, cut him down for 2 really successful movies. But yeah, like, I'm sure he was a different person. It's hard, I guess, to have failure, but I feel like the movie's almost like about failure.
It is, yeah.
So,
I mean, retroactively, it almost makes more sense within his career too. It's about the terror of following successful movies. If you want to, you know, if you want to think about the first half of the film as all the pre-production nightmare of coming up with the story and figuring out what to do and making wrong choices over and over again, and then the second half of the film is all about the production, which is grueling and horrible and alienating, and ultimately, it's for nothing.
Yeah.
In the end.
Now it was a fun ride.
Yeah, it's a metaphor for itself, unconsciously.
Yeah.
There's a school of thought that says Christopher Nolan's Inception is about movie making. You know, like, it's collaborative, creating a dream that will live beyond the artists who created it. I can sort of see it. And it lets him play in 3 different sandboxes and all that stuff.
Right. Fair metaphor.
Yeah. But I'd never really considered Sorcerer as one until now, and it works.
Going
like the
through
fact
a
that
jungle, adventure filmmaking.
Yeah,
it's a different kind, I guess.
Location shoots and not being able to fully communicate your intentions to people.
Yeah, and the chaoticness of the unknown and the unpredictable elements that are always going to pop up.
And then even when you deliver, you're met with hostility.
Right. Yeah, maybe he's like he's the sorcerer. He foresaw his own fate.
Yeah. Oh,
and he did it to himself. Who knows?
That's a fascinating interpretation. I like it. I wonder if he would listen. If he would entertain the thought. He'd probably be very hostile to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it did definitely, like, I always want to watch more of his work. But yeah, I definitely feel like it kind of disrupted his flow.
Yeah, he's never been...
Maybe he settled his ego. Maybe, I don't know, if he got a big ego off the first 2. And
I think, how do you know?
He seems, yeah.
Yeah, the arc of his career doesn't really have an arc. It jumps all over the place. Like, there's some purely competent commercial work like Blue Chips, and there's another one around that time in the early 90s that wasn't bad, and then there's just stuff like Jade and The Guardian and Deal of the Century, where it's, why, I guess you want it to work, but there's no movie there.
Yeah, it's like studio films.
Yeah. And then he went back to basics with Bug and Killer Joe, and just took these Tracy Letts plays and turned them into character pieces instead of giant movies. And they're both really, I mean, Killer Joe goes way over the top, but that's part of it. And,
Yeah.
And you can't really point to Bug and say, that doesn't go over the top. But he's found him, I guess he found himself again in these smaller films.
Yeah, he returned to his roots. I guess more control, more chaos.
Yeah.
At the same time,
The chaos is
the
in
less
people
budget
instead of in the mechanics, right? Like it's all stuff that you can control with actors.
Yeah.
Instead of, I mean, I think the biggest set piece in Bug involves a space blanket and fluorescent lights. It's not, and some makeup, but it's not hugely complicated.
Uh-huh.
And he's just finished a documentary on a priest who inspired The Exorcist or something.
To me, I don't know if this is like a fair comparison, but
Right.
he kind of seems almost like he would he kind of like his film work is got a documentary style to it.
Yeah,
Like an honesty
His
to
best
it.
films are, they feel unadorned.
Yeah.
Like he's just pointed at it. I mean, the documentary style of The Exorcist is absolutely the most disturbing thing about it. The fact that you can trick yourself into believing that this is all happening because it's right in front of the camera and it feels real. It's called The Devil and Father Amorth. I'm probably mispronouncing it. It's only 68 minutes. It's a documentary that finds Friedkin, a legendary raconteur, leading a tour that moves from the infamous exorcist steps in Georgetown to Italy, where he meets with the 91-year-old Father Gabriele Amorth, official exorcist of the Diocese of Rome, accompanying Amorth on one of his harrowing house calls. Now I'm scared.
He's still doing house calls.
I guess so.
At 91?
Well, I mean, you know your market.
Right.
There was a documentary last year at Hot Docs called, I think it's called Deliver Us, and it's about the exorcists of Sicily. It's about the Catholic, the Franciscans, the Franciscan priests who still specialize in exorcism. And there's a moment where one of them does one over the phone. And and you just think, oh, okay, that's just irresponsible.
Right.
But apparently if you just shame a demon, they go away.
Yeah. Yeah, you just gotta point people in the right direction. I feel like it's like life guidance, maybe.
Yeah,
is what it comes down to.
Most of it is just mental health counseling.
Yeah, you're stressed out about something. I can see that you manifested it. But yeah, just different language, I guess.
What do you think you did wrong? Why do you think the devil is in you?
Yeah,
It's
therapy.
I'd love to really dig into the idea of the demonic possession wave of the 70s in film influencing people who are susceptible to that sort of thing in the 80s and 90s. I mean, it's clearly what paved the ground for the McMartin School, the Satanic Panic of kids with recovered memories of ritual child abuse, which were planted there by well-meaning hypnotists who were just trying to figure out why they were upset. And I don't blame the movie. The movie is simply a great work of art that caught a public moment, like in the collective unconscious. Mm-hmm. But the legacy of The Exorcist, when you think about it, is there's a lot of damage done in the world by people. And I'd love to know how Friedkin feels about that, because it's not intentional, clearly.
Yeah.
But once it got out, it was out.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like... Yeah. And that's also possible, I guess, with, anything of success will definitely influence in a positive or negative way, I guess. Yeah, it's almost like successful art's open to how you interpret it. And, people are definitely susceptible to, believing funky things.
Yeah. All the time.
Yeah. How that would kind of get into their unconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if maybe Sorcerer is a return to kind of literal filmmaking where it's purely representative. It is what it is.
Right.
And there's no way, I mean, even the subject matter isn't original. He can't claim that it's a thing that got into the world afterwards. I mean, French Connection kind of played up people's awareness of heroin smuggling in the early 70s, but I think most of America knew that was going on. It just made it stylized and exciting. But you can't say that it glamorizes the drug trade. And then The Exorcist was used as a cultural 2x4 to sort of thump people into either believing in the devil or embracing the church or using it as an excuse. The devil made me do it became a catchphrase, for God's sake. It's one of those things where you're just in this new space where you're accidentally responsible for creating this thing.
Right, yeah.
So Sorcerer,
it's kind of scary.
Yeah. Sorcerer is just guys in trucks. That's all this is.
Yeah.
Guys in trucks and explosions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Safer.
an interesting concept.
Yeah.
But
Unless
I'm sure, yeah, like, kind of, like, yeah. Got real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, then the obvious question is, is there anything of Sorcerer that you've borrowed or lifted or stolen or incorporated into your own creative DNA?
Maybe not directly, but, like, I guess I've always kind of liked that structure of just kind of like hoping for something, like there's a singular goal, and just like the craziness that happens on the journey and stuff that changes the characters. The characters gotta kind of like, I love when characters get kind of like put through the ropes and kind of like maybe don't survive in some way.
Right.
It's that kind of like unpredictable, just kind of like let's like point these characters in this direction and put them through the ringer.
Yeah. Trial by fire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Proving ground kind of thing.
Yeah.
What are you screening at the WTF festival?
Well, I actually screened something, I think it was 2 years ago now, and that was like Space Breakers.
Mm-hmm.
It was this kind of inspired by Pauly Shore's Biodome, but vaguely, but like changed. It's more about a bunch of kind of kids in this alternate universe who see a commercial for this space mall called the Biosphere that promises like all these pleasurable activities and fantasies. So they steal their uncle's spaceship and have this kind of journey there, but their spaceship like kind of breaks down. They like run out of food and gas, and yeah, they just have to put out a distress call, and like things just don't really go right.
Yeah.
It was kind of a rough cut when we played it, so it's still kind of a work in progress. There's been a lot of distractions. But it like maybe has probably given it more than it deserves if I say it took anything from Sorcerer. But
it's a long journey.
Yeah, like maybe
on a trip,
maybe
quest narrative.
Yeah, like extremely vague connection. Yeah,
that's all we're looking for.
Yeah, it was more just like a fun. Built a spaceship in the basement of Queen Video, and like just had a experimental kind of like story that came out of it.
So, are you going to be at the WTF festival this year?
Yeah, I'll definitely be there.
Hanging around?
Yeah, I pretty much like almost like everything that Peter puts out or like curates, I'm always impressed by and always curious about, especially like Laser Blast. That's like one of my favorite things going on in Toronto.
Yeah, it's a fun series. I never would have thought there would be that much appreciation for crappy old movies from the 80s.
Yeah.
That I did not like the first time around.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I was a little skeptical when it was on VHS at first. It was a little hard to watch. Yeah. Sometimes sometimes it wasn't on VHS, but it was like close to VHS quality, like almost like a VCD, I guess.
Yeah.
But now since they have the 35mm kind of access, everything's kind of just like the best it could ever be.
Yeah.
So yeah, that just took it up a huge notch, I feel.
It fascinates me that there's a non-ironic appreciation of these things. I mean, they just screened Abraxas Guardian of the Universe, 2 months ago?
Yeah.
I saw that the first time around.
Right.
It was not memorable.
Right.
And now people actually want to see it.
Yeah. I feel like there's something to do with like the communal aspect of just like watching a like a nonsense movie or like like it's like an honest movie sometimes. Like there's honest parts to it.
Yeah,
People were trying to do something.
Yeah. When you get lucky with those things. I mean, I truly believe no one, with the possible exception of Michael Bay, ever sets out to make a bad movie.
Right.
Like if you're going to put in the effort, and it's work, especially back then, it's work to make a movie.
Yeah.
You're going to want something that lasts or something that breathes, like comes to life.
Yeah.
And when you get flashes of it, it's something, I mean, the ideal is probably Cameron's Terminator, the first one, where it looks raw and cheap and you can see the stop motion effects, but it doesn't matter because it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, and that one's like not even funny. It's just like, I mean, it's like, it's got some like iffy special effects, but overall it's like, wow, this is thoroughly like top quality, like yeah.
So what's the best thing you've seen at Laser Blast yourself? What's your favorite memory?
Well, like probably like the latest one, surprisingly, maybe. It was
which one was
Stuart Gordon's Fortress.
Oh, right, with Christopher Lambert and the exploding neck collar.
Yeah.
Is that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything about it like was kind of perfect in my mind. Just like this kind of futuristic prison, all these kind of subtle sci-fi like elements to it, like turret robots and laser bars.
Yeah.
And a really open concept underground prison silo thing.
Yeah.
And
Gordon was always good at that stuff. He could make the most of a little. I mean, I'm thinking about Sorcerer playing in there, and it wouldn't be out of place. I guess it's way more expensive than most.
Yeah.
But it does have that same kind of handmade feel to it, where...
Yeah. It would play pretty well. I feel like it doesn't have enough flaws.
Yeah.
For, like, a laser blast.
Maybe it'd be more like the Neon Dreams features. Although that's 80s, and this is earlier. But it feels like it's part of it.
It could be.
Part of the
continuum. Yeah, like, I mean, I guess their mantra is partly, like, underappreciated films.
Right.
But
Sorcerer certainly was at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, now
I'll make a case. I'll reach out.
Yeah, I'd happily go see it again if they... I feel like they could play it... They don't even need to have, like, a special banner for it. Or, like... Yeah, they could just be like, if the Royal is playing it.
Yeah.
I would happily go see it. And tell everyone that I know to go see it.
Have you seen it in the theater? Have you had the chance?
No. I've only seen it on the digital Blu-ray.
Yeah, we should get on that. That's... I saw it in the Lightbox 1 when they did a press screening of the restoration, and there were maybe 8 people in the room. It's this great, big, empty, dark space filled with that movie. It plays. It really works. Yeah. Probably more satisfying than it was the first time I saw it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like they kind of like did a restoration, but I feel like it wasn't... Like, there hasn't been like a proper re-release.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of seemed like a bit of a half-assed re-release. Like,
well, it was promo for the home video release, right? Like, it was a month ahead of the Blu-ray.
Right.
And they, at this point now, it's just easier to send the hard drives out into the world and say, hey, it's promotion, it's advertising.
Yeah.
Which, weirdly enough, is what happened in the late 80s with movies like Abraxas Guardian of the Universe. They'd drop it into the Eaton Center for a week and then play the same print in Vancouver the following week and say, National Theatrical Release, coming soon to video, and it would be out in 6 weeks.
Right.
That's how I ended up reviewing most of them. It was not a good time. But, this...
The low-budget techniques.
Yeah. Sorcerer could definitely use a reappreciation, a rediscovery. Hopefully we'll help with that.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully. I would be happy.
Good job. My thanks to Zak Tatham, who'll be wandering around the Monarch Tavern and the Royal Cinema in Toronto this weekend for the What the Film Festival. Say hi! I'd be there myself, but I'm out of town collecting podcasts in London. Thanks also to Peter Kuplowsky. He knows what he did. You can find Zak on Twitter at ztates, Z_TATZ, and check out his Vimeo account at vimeo.com/Zak Tatham. For more information on the What the Film Festival, including the full schedule of screenings and events, visit laserblastfilmsociety.com, all one word, and click the link at the top of the homepage. You can find the restored Sorcerer on Blu-ray and DVD from Warner Home Entertainment. It's also available on iTunes and Google Play. The restoration looks and sounds fantastic, and if you haven't seen the movie in a while, you really ought to check it out again. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner and elsewhere on the internet at nowtoronto.com. You can also find this podcast on Twitter at Semcast, SEMcast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. If you feel like leaving a review on iTunes or Apple Podcast, that would be greatly appreciated. Every little bit helps, it truly does. Thanks for your support, and thanks for listening.
I'm afraid you're just too darn loud.